Hey everybody, Reaper here again with another video. For this video I wanted to talk a little bit more about some price increases and whether the time has passed for you to be able to get certain books. So we'll start off with the price increases. The big one for the last week and a half is Venom and Carnage. As I follow some posts on Facebook and Instagram, we can see that these books, since the trailer was released, Venom 2 trailer, the first trailer was released, that these books are now starting to fetch for a lot of money. But here's the thing though with that, are you really surprised? The reason why I asked that is because it never ceases to amaze me, reading those posts that I said I saw these books, people talking about these books on. It never ceases to amaze me how many people, oh my God, I can't believe these books have shot up so much. I mean, with the way things have been going, if you've been collecting comic books for at least 5 or 6 months, and you see some of the bigger issues, whether they're Silver Age or even right now the Modern Age books, seeing the way things have been going with such tremendous price increases, how could you be surprised that now all of a sudden, after the Venom 2 trailer where you get to see Carnage, you see Venom again, are you surprised that they're going up? They've gone up to new highs and all this? It just never ceases to amaze me. So what happens now? Do you buy it? Do you hold off on it? These are the questions that I think a lot of us are faced with. The question that I have in my mind when it comes to these particular books, these 2 particular books, why weren't you buying them years ago? I mean, we knew that Carnage was going to show up. He was in the post-credit scene in the first Venom, so we knew Carnage was showing up. So many of us were buying those Carnage books whenever we could find them. But for all the new people that are now all of a sudden trying to get Carnage, I mean, didn't you know that eventually this character was going to show up, and now you want to go and try to spend $500, $600 on a 9.6 or close to or over $1,000 on a 9.8? That's why I make these other videos, books you should be looking out for. Now, not all of the books that I show are going to be hits. May not be. But I think that they are some pretty good books for you to be looking out for right now when you can get them somewhat cheap. Some of them are not so cheap, I'll admit. I know that some of them are several $100s. But the reason why those are put in those videos is because I feel that they have there's a lot of room for them, like a Marvel Premiere 1 or Thor 165. So it's getting back to Venom and Carnage, it's always good to try to prepare. And I know, like I said, some of us have prepared trying to get as many of those first appearances of Carnage, newsstand editions and not. I think I'm in the minority when it comes to that movie. I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my God, boy, does this movie look like shit. And just like the first one, this is utter garbage. This is a movie that I am not going to watch. If I do decide to watch it, it would have to be for free or something. I would not pay to see that or pay to go see that movie. Everyone's like, oh, this looks awesome. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, of course. But for me, especially the part with Venom, I've always, as a fan of Venom for many, many years, I've always thought that Venom was supposed to be terrifying. And one can argue that he is still a little terrifying in the movies. But there's just too much humor in some of these films. And that it's not just for Venom. It's for a lot of these Marvel Cinematic Universe films. That's why sometimes they're a turnoff for me. I mean, does everything have to be funny in some way? And a lot of times the humor that it's used, in particular this trailer, it's not funny. It's just not funny. Or at least, again, that's my opinion. Maybe some of you out there understand where I'm coming from or have an idea. Like, yeah, I could see what you're saying, but geez. Everything it's like everything with some of these movies, especially the Spider-Man movies, it's like every scene there has to be a joke. And it makes me like it less. It makes me just not want to see it. At least with the old Spider-Man movies, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, it had humor in those too. And it's good, you balance out the humor because you don't want something that's so depressing and so ultra dark. But at least with, I thought, the Tobey Maguire films, it's there was a little bit more heart in those movies. There was a little bit, there was some more serious moments in it where you can really relate to Spider-Man and some of the characters he was dealing with or around. Whereas in the new one, I feel that you don't really get that because every scene seems to be ridiculous. And the few moments where they do have something serious, it doesn't make up for all the comedy that was up to that point. It's just like they made that scene, okay, now we have to be serious for this one scene. It just doesn't come off right. But that's just my opinion. And that's some of the things I thought when it comes to Venom, too, the first movie, and what I've seen in this trailer. Now, does that mean the movie is going to be terrible? No, maybe not. But you'll all see. And the other subject I want to talk about when it comes to comic collecting is, yes, we talk about, Venom and Carnage, how the prices have gone up. And I've made several videos about crazy comic book prices like X-Men #1. And I think Amazing Fantasy recently made another big sale for, a 1.5, I think, sold recently for about 20 grand, I think, on Heritage. So that's, of course, that was going to happen. And, X-Men #1's going up. All these other books are going up. Of course, Amazing Fantasy is going to follow suit. Because, in my opinion, Amazing Fantasy is the Marvel Silver Age, or possibly just the Marvel Silver Age book to have. Some may not agree. Some may disagree. But I think that it's Spider-Man that really carries the Marvel Universe. Some may say, well, Fantastic Four started it. Yeah. Fantastic Four started it, but I think Spider-Man carried it. I don't really think Fantastic Four in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s really did much carrying for the Marvel Universe as Spider-Man did. You could look at every one of those decades and see something very important with Spider-Man. Maybe not so much the 90s. But, so what does that mean for those of you that would like to get an Amazing Spider-Man 1 like me? Or those of you that want to get an X-Men #1? Now that these prices are so crazy, is there, do you think there's ever going to be a time when they'll go back down to a lower price? Well, I think that, some of them, yeah, I think they're going to go down in value, but I don't think by a whole lot. I mentioned this in another video when it comes to, I think, X-Men #1, I think, or whatever. I don't think you're ever going to see X-Men #1, the 3.0s, the 4.5s, go for what they used to go for about 4 years ago. I think those days are over, or even close to what they used to go for 3-4 years ago. I think those days are done. Will they go down a little bit from their current prices? Yeah, I think so. The same for Amazing Fantasy. And that's when everyone starts getting nervous and wants to trade all their Amazing Fantasies in for another book or all this other stuff. Well, it's, you do what you want to do, but I do think they'll go down a little bit. But I tend to think that a lot of those Marvel Silver Age books, like the books I just mentioned, I don't think they're ever going to be really affordable for the average collector anymore. I think that things are permanently changed. But you never know. I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong here. Yes, they'll probably go down a bit, but I don't think they're going to go back to what they used to be. Unless there's some sort of weird market crash or whatever that causes something like that to happen, and then it may happen. But if everything stays somewhat normal or somewhat stable, you never know, right? I think that they're pretty much out of range for a lot of people. But that being said, I still think there are many books out there that you can get that are attainable. I still think that you can. I still think there are some deals out there to be made, to be had for certain books. I know sometimes deals seem like the whole idea of getting a deal seems to be closing. It doesn't seem likely. I mean, I know recently I was talking with my local comic book shop owner about an X-Men #7. Okay? X-Men #7, second appearance of the Blob. And how that's now going like 2.0s, 3.0s are now going for $500. I'm like, $500 for such a low-grade copy? Well, he says everything's going up. And that's true. That's true. Whether or not that holds its value is another story. But the point is, though, yeah, there are books, a lot of books that you never thought would go up are going up. But despite all that, I do think there are some deals out there. It depends on what you consider a deal when it comes to money, of course. You know, if I say, well, $300 for this book is a deal, you might say, well, that's $300. Well, I factor in the potential the book might have and all of that into what I call a deal, and of course my opinion, which may mean nothing to you, but still I think it holds a little bit of weight with some. But I do think that there are still plenty of deals to have. I try to buy, like I said in one of my previous videos, books you should be on the lookout for. I try to buy, for instance, I'm looking at it right now. I have it over there. Free Comic Book Day, Amazing Spider-Man 2007. It's the first appearance of Martin Lee and first appearance of Jackpot. Some people may be very uninterested in getting that book. You could usually get a high grade copy if you're smart. Well, I don't mean if you're smart, but I mean if you're like really looking, you could probably get a high grade copy for about $20-$25. And you never know, it might pay off. And if it doesn't pay off, what's the big deal? It's only $20-$25, right? If it pays off and it's something that you could flip and make a decent amount of money on, hey, I think you did really well. It's one of those safe risks, I think. And there are deals like that for books like that. A lot of people may not be paying too much attention to Martin Lee and some of the Conan characters right now. But the moment that they show up somewhere, like the Netflix show for Conan, if it's a success, or if Martin Lee shows up in an animated show, or a TV show, or a full-length movie, then all of a sudden everyone's going to be interested in it and wish they could have paid $25 for that 9.4, 9.6 or whatever. It's, the point is to try to stay ahead of the game. And there are still plenty of books out there for you to stay ahead of the game on. So don't be too depressed at some of the prices. Again, as for me, with some of the books that seem to be now out of range, well, that's why I have some books that I'm willing to sell to help me get the books I want that appear to be out of range. But aside from that, other books that I want that are out of range that I don't have enough to sell, I'm perfectly okay with it. I think I've gotten a pretty good collection. The big takeaway from a lot of our collections is, I think a lot of us, those are not just trying to sell all the time, but for a lot of us that sell a little bit and are mainly collectors or mainly interested in collecting, we can look at some of the books we have, or we can look at some of the runs we have, or whatever it is, and be happy with what we got. Be very proud of what we have. And I know there are two series in general that I'm very proud to have. It's my Tales from the Crypt collection and my X-Men collection. For both series, I'm one book away from completing a run. For Tales from the Crypt, I'm one book away from having all of the Tales from the Crypt books, which also includes the 2 Crime Patrols and the 3 Cryptid Terrors, which I already have. For my X-Men run, I originally was going to do a 1 through 20, but then I said, I'd like to have all the Silver Age books. I couldn't care less how many of them there are. I would have liked to get them all. And I'm one book away. And I look proudly on those 2 collections because it was Tales from the Crypt that really introduced me to the joy of reading comics. And it was X-Men that introduced me to the joy of collecting comics. And of course, immediately after X-Men, Spider-Man and some other books contributed to that joy. But it was those 2 series. And on top of that, even though I still have a couple of books in my Tales from the Crypt run to upgrade, a majority of my Tales from the Crypt books and my X-Men Silver Age run, they're all nice grades. What I consider nice grades, like, mid-grade to high mid-grade copies. And, I think that's a feat in itself to be able to have those type of copies for those type of books. Some Atom Age / Golden Age and Silver Age comics. So you got to find joy in some of these things. And when you find that joy, whatever way you find it, it makes you appreciate what you have. So those books that like, I wanted Amazing Fantasy, but I just don't think I'm going to be able to get it now. Well, maybe it's not that big of a deal. As long as you're happy with some of the things that you have and whatnot. So, what do you think? What do you think about some of these prices? We've talked about prices a lot on this channel over the last couple of months. Are you currently trying to hunt some books that are fetching a lot of money, like books like First appearance of Venom, first full appearance of Carnage, some other big ones like X-Men #1 and whatnot? Or are you just happy with what you have, or are you just waiting for the right moment to buy or to trade or do whatever? I'd be interested to read what you think. Thanks for watching, everybody, and take care.